good day, and it is only 1 week until Doom Eternal. And so today we're going to be playing some modded out Doom. Specifically, not knee deep in Zdoom, Doom 2 meets Zdoom. And joining me for this insanity is...
Riddick.
Alright. Now, I find it funny that it says Ultimate Doom, but I'm using a Doom Remake mod. So it always says that, no matter if I'm using Doom 2 or not. And I happen to think these 3D models look pretty good. They look a damn sight better than the old, was it Doomsday models from back in the day? I definitely remember that. That mod was actually pretty good, but it didn't really change the gameplay that much. I mean, right now I like the classic flavor, but it was hard to really get into that since it was just Doom but with slightly better graphics. Whereas, like, Brutal Doom just completely changed, like, everything.
Yeah, essentially, when you're used to even a steak dinner constantly, you yearn for something different, like, say, a sandwich.
And Brutal Doom certainly provided that. Initially, I wasn't even really interested in Brutal Doom. It's like I didn't really even care that much. It was like, yeah, well, whatever. I played Doom a million times. Why do I care? And it's like, oh, that's why. Oh, let's see. I already got people in the chat. And hello, Atomic Simud something. This is not a Quake mod. This is Doom Remake number 4, I think is what this is. It has all 3D models and high-res texture packs and things of that nature. We're also rocking the Doom Metal soundtrack. There's so many different versions of the Doom soundtrack that have been remade throughout the years. But I gotta tell you...
It's a good soundtrack.
It's better than the Doom 2016 soundtrack. And even that soundtrack is pretty good. But there's only, like... The entirety of the Doom soundtrack is, like, some of the top-tier stuff. Whereas Doom 2016, you've got Rip and Tear, BFG Division, and Skull Hacker. And the rest is just kind of filler.
Well, here's the thing. Andrew Hushholt, it produces really, really good music, and he didn't do bad there, but I gotta say, somebody give him a guitar. He's really the best when he can just shred.
Don't you mean Mick Gordon?
Yeah, sorry. Brain fried.
I think that's who's playing now, but there's Mick Gordon in that game. My only problem with Doom Eternal is it sounds like we're kind of being lazy, because none of the Doom Eternal songs sound really that good.
Well, the whole time he's being told that you can't use electric guitar, you can't use electric guitar, you can't use... So he has to get really creative, and he eventually snuck guitar into a few tracks and said, okay, you can use a guitar. Damn it, thank you.
We can't have the guitar because we need the old dubstep. That's what the kids still like today. I didn't even know dubstep was a thing until way later. And work was decent. I think I'm going to die because of the chat. Always blame the chat. Oh, I almost said it. Oops.
Yeah, we can't say it technically, so it'll be Sweet and Sour Sicken, General So's, illness, Brianna Wu Kung Fu Flu, things like that.
Ooh, I got it. Marx's measles.
Commie pox.
Commie pox. You mean like the things that are at college campuses?
That too, but they're, funny enough, some of the most likely to catch it.
Yeah, everybody's going kind of nuts about that at work. They came by and, like, were spraying down the desks with some kind of, I don't even know what, some kind of chemical that probably is going to give me cancer 10 years from now.
I doubt Lysol gives cancer. I mean, unless you start using it as a personal cleanser and, get in the more questionable areas.
Well, I didn't do that, but it was still kind of, it's like, no, don't spray that shit on there. Because I wipe down my desk every day with, like, a wipe. I don't just spray some, it looked like some sort of random chemical. Now, that was also at 5 in the morning, but whatever. And hello, Corey. And hello, Echo Thief. The actual beer. Here's something you don't want to do. Do not try to go to Walmart in the middle of the day. I was out of energy bars, and it was a traumatic experience trying to get through there. What's kind of funny is that...
Right now, Walmart's going to be crazy for 24/7 until people are satiated.
Well, at least they had my energy bars, but they didn't have my goddamn tea, so I've got to make it on just 1 gallon of tea for 3 days.
My suggestion, if you got one close, Big Lots.
No, it's nowhere. I think there's one like 20 minutes away.
I would say Big Lots usually had pretty good selection of teas. That's what I'd pick some up if I wouldn't feel like going to a general store.
You know, I actually used to use Big Lots as a way for people to understand what my name was. Because every time I would say Lots, they would think I said something completely different. Yeah, it's like Big Lots, you know. It's like Lots. L-O-T-Z. There's like 4 letters in that. Assuming I'm good at math and can actually know how many letters are in my own name.
No, you got it right.
And the kind of tea I drink is something that real tea drinkers kind of turn their nose up at, but I fucking love the stuff. The Arizona lemon tea. It's just something about that flavor. It's not too sweet, but just sweet.
You can find that at just about any... You're going to have a harder time finding that at Walmart, but you can find that at local stores a lot easier.
Well, I also suffered through a local store called H-E-B. They were completely out to it. It was even worse in there than it was in Walmart. It's like, people here love that Arizona tea. I can understand why, but it's like, give me some goddamn tea. Oh god, I'm drowning. This mod does allow for swimming graphics, which I think looks pretty neat. It's kind of funny just how Doom from 1993 can still look good with just a few little mods here and there. Okay, come on. That's sort of like a cutscene. You get stuck on the door, even though it doesn't make any sense. Meanwhile, I'm drowning.
As for Arizona Tea, they started out as a beer company.
Yeah, I actually saw a video on that. But that is by far my favorite tea. I mean, I could make my own and have, but just like there's something about the flavor that I just absolutely love. Thankfully,
I think you might like citron tea as well.
Never even heard of it. I don't think I've even seen it.
Oh, you're gonna have to order it because unless you got an Asian market. Well, yeah, you got H Mart by you. You could probably get it from there.
I have no idea. It's like, do they have like the normal flavors, or is it some kind of special stuff, or?
Oh, it's tea made from the fruit of citron. It's kind of hard to explain. Imagine crossing a lemon and an orange, and there you go. Although the fruit itself is best used for making tea because it's like 80% rind.
Wow. Instead of citron, that sounds like a goddamn transformer. It's Citron, run! That's the best joke I can come up with. It still sounds like a transformer, though.
Yeah. And Kimoda, or Timoda, I don't know how it's pronounced, for building AR lowers, you can buy specific jigs, and you basically just use either a drill press, or if you're really good at it, you can use a hand drill. I really recommend a drill press, and there's also Defense Distributed makes their own machining structure, which essentially acts like a miniature mill that will take care of all that.
Damn. That's actually getting pretty fancy these days.
Yeah, with that and say a simple home anodizing system by Caswell, you can crank out as many ARs as you want. You're just gonna have to assemble all barrels and all that, but it's not that hard.
You know, 10 years ago, oh yeah, a simple home anodizing system. My God, we're in the future.
No, home anodizing has been around since the 1980s. Color anodizing really hadn't been a thing in personal use since the 90s. Though that being said, you're not going to be doing Type 3 hard code. You're going to be doing Type 2.
And that would be? It's like, Type 3 hard code. That's where it's like, not as hard?
Well, Type 2 is going to be... Alright, here's the thing about aluminum. When you heat aluminum to the right pressures and the right temperatures, you get essentially what is sapphire. Very, very hard. Type 2 hard coat is closer to that, but Type 3 is closer to that, but Type 2 is aluminum oxide. Now, aluminum oxide itself is not soft. It's pretty darn hard, but it's not as hard.
Huh. I had no idea about any of that. I never really studied metallurgy. I do know that it's very difficult to paint aluminum. I don't think you could...
You're going to need a primer.
So...
It's easier to powder coat it.
I actually tried to spray paint an aluminum handguard once, and that did not end well. So...
Well, the good news is the U.S. military does it all the time. That's why we use brake cleaner to get the spray paint off.
Really? It must be a different spray paint than I use.
Well, no, it's not meant to last. It's just meant to be expedient. You know, go to the motor pool, see what camo we're using for this theater, spray it on, let it dry. Okay, it's worn out. Give the brake cleaner, close it off.
Well, that works. What's kind of weird is like finding some random aluminum parts on like really old shotguns. Because my old Sears and Roebuck double barrel has an aluminum handguard. Not a handguard, trig guard. Trig. You know what I mean? God damn it, I can't speak.
Well, if you're wanting to turn it black, you can just go with Virtual Casey's aluminum black. Just clean up and degrease the part with simple green, and then just, you know, once it's dry, hit it with the aluminum black, let it sit, and come back with water, and then let it dry. Bit of a note though, wash your hands immediately after handling aluminum black. That stuff, while if exposed for a short period of time, isn't that bad, but if exposed for a longer period of times, it burns.
I would usually just use gloves anyway. I'm very paranoid about my hands. Especially after the time I used Oxfo blue and my fingernails turned yellow. Which kind of creeped me out.
Yeah, it's the sulfur.
So, yeah, let's see. ATF continues to do as pleases. They always like to do that, which is an aggravation.
Here's the thing. There is no checks and balances for ATF. They are a non-judicial firm enacting their own checks and balances. It's very, very wrong. There needs to be oversight. There always should have been oversight.
I need to actually figure out when ATF became a thing. Is that
they really kind of became a thing after the revenuers, after Prohibition, although they didn't really come to the fore until the 1970s.
Yeah, I figured it would be the 70s. I actually watched a really depressing video on the 70s, where that was the turning point for the United States. It's like, well, that's great. Probably shouldn't have listened to that at work. Basically, with all the change in culture, more or less, apparently took place in the 70s. It's kind of compelling. I don't know how accurate that is, but I can see that happening.
And Alumahide will work on just about any metal as long as you keep it clean, greased, Komoda. Problem is 80% lower. If you can get it anodized, anodize it. You really, really want that metal to be at least protected by a layer of aluminum oxide before you go about and coat it.
And let's see, this is still the GZ Doom engine. I'm using Doom Remake number 4. I'm not sure if that's still on ModDB. I think there was some Doom WAD that like included the actual WADs in the file and got taken down for that. I think it might have been this one. Now when I downloaded it didn't have it, but I think some update might have.
Yeah, I know one of the Aliens mods got busted for that.
But if it's still on there, it's the Doom Remake number 4, and I'm being attacked by a special enemy created for this mod. That's not going to be in 3D. It's basically a random spider head that has sprites from Duke Nukem. And does a lot of damage. Remember the control for a flashlight.
Tech, Vector in general made a lot of weird guns. Not great guns, but definitely weird ones.
Oh yeah, here's a pro tip. If you have a blowback 9mm carbine, you actually need to clean it. Otherwise you could get a lot of failure to feeds and things of that nature. Evidently, 9mm and blowbacks are very dirty.
Well, blowback in general is very dirty. You think an AR run's filthy, man. You wait till you get a hold of a HK roller delayed blowback.
Oh, one day I shall see that. Although, here's my thing, though. When it comes to, like, say, an MP5, how often would you need to clean that?
But most things will run filthy. They really don't care. As long as you have good ammo, it'll continue to run and run and run. You just want to clean them every 5,000 rounds.
Well, I think the PC carbine needs a little more cleaning a little more often than that. At least
yeah, it's direct blowback because it doesn't have a fluted chamber. It doesn't have a form of delay to it. It's basically bolt slides home, round is fired, direct impulse pushes back, and you're fighting springs. Those springs are a little bit harder to fight than a roller lock is.
So why are roller locks so much more expensive, though? I mean, surely with
because
modern...
making those rollers and making that bolt is a lot tougher than making a simple blowback. When you make a roller delayed blowback, you can't just make one set of rollers. You actually have to make roughly 20 different sets of rollers, and you have to fit it to that rifle.
Okay. So like no
because
one...
you have a thing called headspace.
No
those
wonder
rollers determine what your headspace is.
Okay, no wonder HK doesn't like to use that then. Because that sounds very expensive.
Well, it's not super expensive to make a set of rollers. You got to heat treat them. That's not too terribly hard. Even I can do that. You give me a lathe, give me some time and a torch and some used motor oil. I can heat treat a set of rollers. I can construct one for you. It starts getting it's more a labor cost. Now, in terms of getting expensive, that's when we're talking a set of MSG 90 or PSG 1 rollers, because those are not rollers. Those are titanium, and they are actually semicircular.
That does sound expensive.
So I've got to mill it, and then I have to basically take the micrometer, measure it out, and cut off the needed portion to fit it to the trunnion. Milling titanium is a pain in the butt.
Does it have greater hardness than steel? Or is it similar but just lighter?
Yes and no. It has roughly the same hardness, but the real big thing is it has a higher shear strength. When we're comparing it to metals, I mean, if you need something harder, then we could go away from carbon steels into dendritic steels. But when it comes to shear strength, that's when metals get really specific. Like, okay, let's say I work with a dendritic steel like a CPM S30V. Great for making knives. Absolutely a total pain in the rear end to make tools out of.
And that's just because it would need really hard, tool things to work, I suppose.
Well, yes and no. The tool does have to be... The tooling used to cut it does need to be hardened, but you also have to watch how much pressure you apply, because CPM S30V and S35BN, when you start applying pressure to it in a lathe, the pressure has to be uniform, otherwise your tool, no matter how hard it is, you'd have a diamond-faced tool, it'll skate, it won't cut, it'll just make a whining noise and skate across.
And see, most of this stuff's going completely over my head, so yeah.
Best way to put it is, unless the pressure is applied uniformly in the same way every time, tool no worky, tool just make funny noise.
Okay, well see, that makes sense. Why didn't you say it in the first place? It's it skates over? What? Huh? I'm just glad I'm smart, because some of this stuff, I would what? It's magic, right? It's just magic. Just say magic. That's it. It's magic.
Well, it would be if it wasn't the craft more applied by blacksmiths.
Just say magic. It requires the magic pixie dust, and it works.
No, there's very few magic pixie dusts when it comes to metal.
Although here's my question. If there was magic pixie dust, that would make things even more complicated.
Oh, that's when you start talking your Japanese super steels. That's when the magical pixie dust stuff happens.
You basically grind it with a Dakimakura.
Kinky.
You know, I actually got a sponsorship offer for one of those things. I did not accept.
I would have, just to be goofy as hell. It's like, can I say what I want to say? Can I, say the truth?
Yeah. Although that does remind me of a YouTube video I ended up watching about Raid Shadow Legends. Basically, the guy was complaining about how bad the game actually is and how he got a bunch of sponsorship offers for like $4,000. For $4,000, I'd hawk that game. Yes, Raid Shadow Legends is my favorite game on the internet. I would play it all day long if I had all day to play it. It's like, it's one of those things where it's pretty obvious that it's not real. It's not a real game, because it really isn't. Anything on mobile's going to be fake anyway. I mean, you kind of just have to assume it is.
Oh, yes and no. I mean, that's a gashapon game with the hugest quotation fingers in the universe. But there are some mobile games which are good. Best case example, my tablet, I'll be first to admit it. When Carmageddon made the Android tablets, I was the first buyer.
Really?
There's no transactions, there's no goofiness, there's none of that. It's just classic PC Carmageddon with better textures and admittedly kind of naff touchscreen controls, but it's Carmageddon. You're not exactly going to be precise anyway.
See, for me, I would just want to play it on the actual PC, but I guess you don't really have much of a choice. The only mobile game...
I've had it on PC. I've had it on PC when it came out.
Oh. A completionist, I see.
It's a good game.
You know, I never really got into too many of those. Now, do you know which one is the one that had Duke Nukem in it? Because there was some car game...
That's going to be Death Track Classic. That's not going to be Carmageddon.
Okay. Because I've always wanted to play that one because, well, Duke Nukem. I remember seeing it back in the 90s, but I never played it.
That was a pretty good game.
Ah, you're reading Earthhive, eh, Ross, dude? I recommend reading the Doom novels. I'm almost done with it, and it's almost done with them. They're pretty good. And hello, Turok. You know, I used to clean all my guns after every time, and then I just kind of got lazy, and then there were just so many of them, and it was like, where do I even start? Fire Emblem.
And tech, the best way to dissolve the ATF without breaking out the igloos and, going for balut, things like that, would be, slow change. We've got to push through with Congress, contact the GOA. We'll find a way. It's not going to be fast. In fact, it'll probably take a generation at least, but it is doable with the pen as opposed to the sword.
Yeah, especially these days with the internet. Because used to be they could get away with that stuff and nobody really knew it was happening outside of, a small number. The average person didn't really care. That's the one problem with the firearms hobby today compared to what it was before. Back when I was younger, nobody cared. And, the ranges were all empty, but then all the noobs showed up, and, go away, people.
The ranges weren't empty back then. They just... Remember, when you were young, we had, Lenny McGill and that. We had the 80s. It was still pretty populous. Everybody wanted the A-team guns, which you can now get, finally.
Well,
it's not going to be an 8556, it's going to be a Mini 14 with the AC556 stock, but good enough.
And I saw a video on the Mini 14. Evidently, it's not a good gun for taking to Desert Brutality, because it, just died a horrible death.
Oh yeah, it's not meant for that. Then again, its parent doesn't fare any better.
See, that's one of the funny things about the Doom novels. The M14 is seen as, still a great gun, because, well, that book was written in the 90s, and people didn't... I guess people back then didn't know any better, or they didn't care, or something, because...
90s, remember, you couldn't get out... Unless you were lucky enough and driven enough to get either a Bushmaster or a DPMS, you weren't getting an AR-15.
And it's kind of funny how just it's the future, and it's like, oh yeah, the M14 is the greatest ever.
It wasn't a bad rifle. It wasn't great, but it's for most of your users, even for ranch use, it's perfectly serviceable.
Yeah,
it's a lot better now than it was back then. I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's true just about anything. I think when it comes to the some of the funnier guns in the Doom books. It's apparently Remington partnered with Krupp to make a auto shotgun that has a 100-round drum magazine.
Having been an owner of a Saiga 12 and will be again, or at least one of its clones, let me tell you something. 20 rounds gets heavy real quick unless you're used to it. And the Alliance Armament 30-round drums are always trash. God. Those guys still owe me 2 Saigas they screwed up.
But in the future, you have 100 rounds of 12 gauge.
Well, there was, to be fair, there was a member on the Weapons Makers Guild that, this is many, many moons ago, who was working on making a belt-fed 12 gauge.
I've seen one of those in a picture once. And that's kind of interesting. A belt-fed 12 gauge. I could, I will actually defend the Doom book now that I think of it. The plastic could be really, really light. The metal could be really, really light. And maybe you could do it that way. Maybe.
It depends. There are certain technological advancements that if we got, taken care of, a man could carry and feasibly use a minigun very easily. We can use a microgun right now. We can use the 5.56 version. But let's say aerosolized metals, metal foam, and better power sources, yeah, sure.
That just seems like too much to do too little, though. I don't know. I wouldn't have a problem with a 12 gauge shotgun that has a 100-round mag if I had like a powered exoskeleton.
Oh no, that's why you want it belt fed, because that way you can just run it off a backpack. You carry 200 rounds on your back, as long as you got a good shoulder support. Yeah, you're fine.
That'd be kind of cool. I'd like to see that in a game at some point. A backpack fed shotgun in software, if you still existed. That needs to be in the next Doom game. Because really, Doomslayer doesn't really need a backpack fed anything. He can just carry it all because, well, he's the Doomslayer. He can just carry it with his manliness. Jet Set Radio. Never even played it, but I know what it is. And I'm probably
an awesome game series.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to be streaming anymore this weekend. Probably not, though. And I would say the SKS is still viable just because if you can have a shitload of clips, you can definitely keep up the firepower.
SKS, really, it is what it was in the 80s. It was a good, inexpensive brush hunting rifle that just works. I have very little bad to say about it.
See, for me, with the SKS existing, now, these days it doesn't matter anymore because you can get an AR for the price of an SKS. But back when you couldn't, that just makes so much more sense to get one of those than a Mini 14. I mean...
Well, it depends. The Mini 14, if you wanted 5.56, you wanted low recoil and the same ammunition that, let's say, our U.S. troops were using at the time, yeah, that makes sense. But if you were just being strictly practical, well, that's why the SKS was such a darling back then.
Or even still in the 2000s when I got mine. I think no one cared back then. Like, there's that little bit of time when the SKS was still just a random gun that no one cared about. Because there used to be, like, crates and crates of the things for, like, really, really cheap.
Oh, yeah. All the survivalist bottoms, and because, well, that was kind of the in thing in pulpy survivalist fiction. And then people realized, hey, it's kind of fun. They got it, and they realized they got it out of their system. I've got enough of these, what more, why would I need more? So we got crates upon crates upon crates, and then people started, catching on again. It's like, hey, these are kind of cool. I want one.
Yeah, and then they bought them all. Thanks, noobs. Thanks.
Well, it's cyclical. If something is in current production, its prices generally tend to fluctuate down. If something is out of production, limited resources mean the prices fluctuate up. The only thing that changes that is if the desire for said item drops. Like, say, Palmetto State Armory coming out with their AKs. That's going to cause a lot of AK prices to drop. Now, when PSA comes out with their version of the SV Dragunov, that might just cause the price of the previous Tiger rifles to drop.
I've always tried to find some way to justify getting a Dragunov or a PSL or something like that, but never was able to. Because it's like,
It's because right now they're unobtainium.
Well, even back when
prices aren't terrible, but
when you could get them.
Back when they could get them, you couldn't purchase a gun. You weren't of legal age.
Well, yeah, okay, that's true. I could dream, couldn't I? I could dream.
Oh yeah, you can always dream. I'm never going to deny you that.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of those kind of rifles. The one I'd like to get most of all, just because I think it's the most interesting, is the Zastava one, a Dragunov kind of rifle, chambered in 8mm Mauser. I think that's just kind of interesting that there's a semi-modernist rifle chambered in that caliber.
Well, it's because it's a good round, and at the time, they didn't want to go full Warsaw Pact. They needed something to call their own, and that's what they got. As for wood lasting longer than polymer, yes and no, it's about the same. If you take care of your guns and keep them in a dry environment, a climate-controlled environment, in lube, they'll last multiple lifetimes. If you neglect your gun, doesn't matter if it's polymer or steel, eventually the gun underneath is, if it's polymer or wood, the gun underneath is just going to rust away.
Crap. Yeah, it's like when you say a wet environment. Well, I'm kind of screwed because Houston is, all the humidity.
You're living in a climate-controlled environment, because if you're in a wet environment, your computers would be rotting away.
Okay, well, that's good news. Oh, see, like, this is the one problem I have with this mod is it's very hard to figure out where to go sometimes, and some things just don't trigger.
Tech, as for the RDB and MDR, they would not make good select fire rifles. Great for semi-auto, and well, I take that back. The RDB actually has been goofed around with in select fire by George Keldring. But thus far, to my knowledge, nobody's, bit that. No law enforcement agency has bit that bullet to buy one in select fire. They've all bought semi-auto.
Silver Rings, you have a Mini 14? Is it actually any good? That's the better question. Because I want to know, like, I guess maybe some are better than others. I don't know. I never really wanted one just because more to do with the price than anything else. It's like if I was gonna get a classical kind of firearm like that, I would just stick with the M1 Garand, which I have. It's like, please wear a radiation suit. Too bad I grabbed the radiation suit but didn't hit the switch. So time to get irradiated. Did you want kids, Doomslayer? Hopefully not.
It's a tough job.
It's like maybe they can just clone him.
If there's any DNA left to clone after that, it's not damaged.
Well, he can rip and tear the nucleus. We're just gonna say that. I picture Doomslayer just saying that. I will rip and tear atoms to pieces. Wait, no. If you do that, you're gonna get blown up, Doomslayer. Don't do that.
He's got monomolecular fingers.
Because of the science. You can definitely tell this has been designed to use Zdoom because there's all the slopes. The difference between Zdoom and the regular Doom engine is the ability to use slopes, apparently, from what I remember when I
height maps, and you can fake sector over sector.
So it's pretty interesting how that whole thing works. I really like this Doom Remake mod because it does a really good job with the shadows. I mean, it just completely reinvents Doom in a pretty cool way. I mean, obviously, Brutal Doom's gonna really have a little bit better gameplay, but this works pretty well. I'd like to play this in VR, but getting Doom to work in VR is not an easy prospect.
And the use for select fire, mostly it's for covering fire and for our U.S. military uses it for bounding Overwatch. It's not used terribly often, but it is used. The closest I can say for law enforcement is we used to train them on MP5s to fire on a full auto case, a bad situation arises and they accidentally click over to full auto. They need to know how to control that gun.
And also it's fun. Because let's be reasonable, when you turn on the fun switch, you just kind of let fly. At least I would imagine. I could be wrong. Okay, who is left alive that needs to be shot? Is somebody else...
Timeline with the AR-10. If we adopted the AR-10 or the FNFAL, we probably wouldn't have gotten the AR-15 until the 80s.
So basically like most of the European countries. For once, we were ahead of the curve. You still don't have that foul metric system? Who wants it? Base 10? Ha! I laugh at your base 10. We can go beyond.
You don't go to 11, we go to 12.
It's like, now I'm stuck in here, because either A, somebody didn't spawn in. That's the real big issue with this mod. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Thankfully, we've got no clip. When in doubt, no clip. And yeah, I cannot wait until Doom Eternal comes out. I think it looks like it's actually going to be pretty good. By which I mean really
need a
good.
shotgun Isabel figure.
A what?
We need a shotgun Isabel figure.
What is that?
Isabel from Animal Crossing wielding Doomguy's shotgun.
Oh yeah, I saw that in my recommended. Since I don't know anything about Animal Crossing, it's like, oh, the Animal Crossing waifu, I assume?
No, just cute.
Oh, so non-waifu, just Dakimakura then. You know it exists.
It does, it probably does, but no, I would not. That would be a case of no. That it's meant for cute. It's not meant for anything else. It's meant for cute.
On AliExpress, we have the whatever the fuck you just said, Dakimakura. And I will check the chat here. A newer one with a thicker barrel. And magazines, only ones that work. Oh, that sucks. Indeed. You know, I wonder, like, will the Ruger Mini 14 ever have, you know, like, a changeable mag well to take AR mags?
No, it can't.
Oh?
It's built like the M14 is in magwell design. You have to have a rock and lock mag.
Hey, then maybe you could like have it take like 5.56 AK mags. That'd be kind of expensive though, so it kind of ruins that, but still.
Well, it's not a matter of just expensive. It's a matter of it would be. You would have to change the dimensions. I mean, you're going to have to pull out the grinder or the mill to do that. And don't know if you're quite sure of it, but they're not only expensive mags, they're near unobtainium mags.
Oh. Really? Must everything be near unobtainium now? Anything cool?
Well, the only people importing it was Ismash, and well, Zastava still makes them, but that's about it.
Oh well.
They're just not as popular.
And why doesn't Magpul make a Mini 14 mag then?
Just right now, simply because they got a lot on their plate. Remember, to make molds, let's say, this is not a generic to make molds thing, but to make molds for a magazine like Magpul does, alright, you've got to have steel reinforcement clips for that type of magazine. So, when you get down to it, the molds for that will cost right about at a cool $500,000.
Well, then you know what? I'm glad they at least make AK mags, because that'd be cheap. The poor...
That depends on the foul.
There's actually a scene in one of the Doom books, unrelated to the FNFAL, where one of the characters doesn't get telefragged, but suffers a teleporter malfunction, and literally liquefies within his own spacesuit, and is still alive when it happens. That is like one of the most hardcore scenes in that entire series, and it's actually handled pretty well, but like, yeah. No wonder Doomslayer's kind of messed up. That's actually a pretty interesting scene in that whole book. It basically makes Flynn Taggart completely flip out and go berserk, and literally rips and tears into some aliens. While naked. Whoa, we got a lot of lag here. I guess it's trying to load in a bunch of textures. But yes, Flynn Taggart, aka Doomslayer, does rip and tear while naked. Because he's, well, a badass. And hello, Emperor Snake. The Cuthworld Dakimakura card. No, I do not, and I'm glad I don't, because that sounds unpleasant. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know what a Dakimakura was until fairly recently. I didn't even know there was a short Doom comic.
Yeah, it's where the term rip and tear originates from, and it's pretty goofy.
Oh, you mean that one from the 90s? Okay, I thought this was, thought it was a different one. Yeah, I have read that one. Now, I'm probably the only one that's going to say this. I was disappointed by it. Because I thought it was basically going to be a straight comic adaptation of the books. How wrong I was.
That was not to be.
I was like, this isn't like the book at all!
Tech, the DSA files are built off the Belgian pattern, barring their fallow. Their fallow, yeah, you can probably get 1-inch groups out of it, but here's the thing, barrel length does not equal accuracy at all. In the case of the foul, where it's not pre-floated, it's actually the opposite. You want a shorter, stiffer barrel, because any pressure you apply to it will throw off your point of aim versus your point of impact.
I'm just going to stand here and blow everything away with my double-barreled shotgun. God damn it. Ah, that Doom comic, though. I do reference that comic in one... Oh, yeah, in the Doom book review. Saying that, well, Doomslayer does not say rip and tear or go on a diatribe about nuclear safety. He does actually rip and tear with a bayonet. That was a really weird comic, though. It was very, interesting. I want to know who wrote that.
I want to know what drugs they were on.
That's not the single most druggy comic I've ever read. There were some Batman comics that looked like that.
Oh, there's a lot of Batman comics that are like that. And to those who say, oh, Batman doesn't kill, Batman... Horse crap. I remember very, very lucidly that, you know, he killed KG Beast by a cask of Amontillado-ing him in the Gotham City underground. He let him starve to death, sealed in.
And he also broke somebody's neck with his boot, which, damn.
Oh, he did more than that. He broke somebody's neck with a boot. He hung someone with an airplane.
So, Batman is pretty badass in that regard. He might as well be the Punisher. This mod, well, the mod here is Doom Remake 4, that's the gameplay, and the actual levels is Doom 2 Meets Zdoom. It's a decent mod, but it's kind of broken in a few areas. You're going to have to no-clip your way through a little bit. Oh my god, it's a ramp! We are in the future!
And Ross, dude, Aliens Earthhive is actually what should have been Aliens 3. It was the original script.
See, like, Earthhive, I think, could have really made the Alien franchise something on par with Star Wars. Sort of like the R-rated Star Wars, more or less.
It should have, but it never got the chance.
Instead, well, it's nothing now. Although I will say that Alien got it a lot less than Star Trek and Star Wars did, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it got a couple of pretentious crap movies, but nothing on par with, you know, well, anything Disney-related. Although you never know, it might end up happening. Since Disney owns Aliens now. Live in fear.
Singapore Queen technically could be a Disney princess.
Coming soon in Kingdom Hearts 4. Okay, I like the idea.
I would almost pay to see that happening, how my mind is envisioning it. And I don't even like Kingdom Hearts.
I've never played it, I just know it's a thing with a guy with a big key and, like, Mickey and Goofy are like kings or something. I don't even know. It's a Final Fantasy thing, and I only like Final Fantasy 1. That is definitely not my game franchise, of that I can guarantee. Let's see. I've not played a graphic adventure game in many, many years. And I didn't like them even when I did. And yeah, the human villain for that, Massey, I always pictured him looking like the guy who played Red Foreman, whatever his name is. Who was also the villain in RoboCop. He just kind of has that look, or how he's described, it just kind of makes me picture him. Sadly, Steve Perry, the writer for Earthhive, can't really write much else very well, from what I can see. Some of his Star Wars work is pretty good, but I tried to read one of his original novels. It was a novel called Matador. I just could not get into it, like, at all. It's one of those half-past-the-future kind of things, but I didn't like the main character, I didn't really like the setting, and I just found it boring and gave up on it. That's why I'm glad it was a grand total of $1. That's one thing about half-price books. You can still find super cheap books, especially ones that no one cares about. And that was one of them. Let's see. 2, 2, 3, or 5, 5, 6 is underpowered. I wouldn't really think so. It's not very good for barrier penetration, but it's definitely good for...
Well, it depends on the round you use. Using M855, it's alright for barrier penetration. If you're using, M855A1, yeah, that's fine. But if you're using, like, Mark 262, no, that's more for terminal effect than it is for barrier penetration.
Now, for me, I still prefer 7.62x39, but 5.56 is still good enough.
I'm a 7.62x51 guy, though that being said, I realize that it's a very limited round. It's a specialist round.
See, one day I want to finally shoot an AK-74. The only problem is, if I do, I might end up liking it and end up buying one of the PSA AK... Was it 200? AK-201?
Honestly, I would wait more for the 5.56 AK clones. Mainly because the ammo is easier to get, and in the format, you're not going to be able to tell the difference recoil-wise. It's going to be fairly low out of both.
I guess it would simplify logistics, but it wouldn't be as cool, though.
It would, because the mags look exactly like the 74 mags. The only difference is, the ammo. And as much as I like my AK-74, 5.56 ammos come a lot further than 5.45.
Yeah, pretty much anything like that will have. I mean, just look at the difference between 9mm and 40 these days.
Now, 40 is still... Here's the thing. If you're buying off-the-shelf 40 outside of specialist ammo, you're getting 40. You're getting, tuned down, 9mm with an extra millimeter.
Just one more millimeter. We like to go one more millimeter beyond. Now that actually reminds me of something else Doom related. In the last Doom novel, they changed the 10mm pistols to 40 caliber pistols because I guess by that point the Doom books had entered the part of the 90s where 10mm was kind of dying off and 40 was becoming popular. It's kind of funny how 10mm is just kind of... It wasn't popular for a while, then people wanted it, then people didn't want it anymore, and now they... People always say they want it, but I just... It's one of those things people say they want a lot, but they never actually end up buying.
Oh yeah, though if you do want to give it a try at a good bargain, look up Tanfoglio. Tanfoglio's pistols are really, really good. They're basically CZ75 based.
I've seen those, actually. I considered getting one at one point, but I still want my legitimate Czech Republic CZ. I actually ended up fondling one at the range today. It feels pretty good in the hand.
Oh, they shoot great, too.
I actually want to rent one of those and see how it shoots, though. Because, see, for me, my standard of accuracy is really... I want something that can shoot better than that Star BM that I have. That thing is ridiculously accurate for... Actually, I can shoot better with it than any other pistol that I own. And it annoys me
I don't know if you'll shoot better than the Star BM, because the Star BM has basically got a lot of 1911 DNA to it, and that's a gun that's very, very easy to shoot very well.
Yeah, it's insanely good to that degree. I mean, like nothing else even comes close. And like, that's just a random like police trade.
Well, yeah, if you built your own 1911 or 2011, you would experience about the same results.
Well, at least there's those double stack 1911s out there. I don't know. It's like I still want that CZ, but
Well, CZ will shoot somewhat similar, although it will be a bit different because how the trigger pivots. The angles are about the same, so really, when shooting it, it's gonna feel somewhat familiar to that Star BM you got.
Like, that was one of the best deals I ever got, though. Like, that was ridiculously cheap compared to, like, everything else. That's why 1911 still isn't dead.
No, it's very, very easy to shoot very, very well.
The Doom 3 novels, the first one's good, the second one's crap. The writing's not nearly as strong, and it takes forever for the Doom 3 stuff to actually happen. Really, the Doom 3 novels needed to be a little bit better, because it only... The first one actually has pretty strong writing, and then the second one just feels kind of like filler, and then it just ends. It literally just stops. Doom 3 guy isn't bad. He's definitely more, mid-2000s than Flint Taggart ever was, but it's just... The writing wasn't as consistent as the original Doom novels. I still do recommend at least reading the first one. The plot is sadly completely different from the game, though. If anything, it's sort of like a call forward to Doom 2016, because the zombies in that actually have the weapons attached to them. The imps are kind of like the imps in Doom 2016. Sadly, there's no battle against the Cyber Demon. At least I don't remember there being one. It just was not... They just weren't that great. Except for the first one. And of course they had the, climate change issues. Well, we've gone down to slideshow. I don't know why we're at slideshow. I think, like, all the textures are loading in or something, but wow, we are totally slideshowing right now. Now, I remember this happening with a different mod. I don't know why it's slideshowing here. That is bizarre. Let's see here. One moment. We might have to try a different mod just because it's virtually unplayable. And yeah, the character named John Kane. I thought that was kind of interesting because that kind of ties in Doom 3 and Quake 4, which to me makes sense to a degree. I could see that happening. It's like the Strog. Okay, when I walk right here, we've got slideshow. When I'm over here, we don't. I don't know what the hell is with that. It's very strange. But I do remember this mod being like that, though. But if that's the case, we can try a different mod. Yeah, we can't.
It could be down to culling distance. That's what it looks like to me.
No, I don't have it.
Also, for games like Carmageddon, Manhunt, Postal, we've got a new Postal. It's on Steam right now, Postal 4. It's not finished. It's in a very, very buggy, janky alpha state. But give it time. As for Carmageddon, we had one. Max damage is good. I have it. I've played it. And if you want to run over Trump or Hillary, they give you that option. You can run over both.
Wow. I find that hilarious. Okay, well, that stopped working, so we're going to try... well, let's try this one, too. There is my... that's not it. Ooh, let's just do Project Brutality, assuming this works with this, which I hope it does. I don't remember anything about Doom 2 Reloaded. But let's try it anyway. Carmageddon. Controversy, which is bad for business. It always is.
No, controversy can be good for business. It depends on what business you're in. If you're in entertainment, controversy can be great.
Well, I'm thinking like when you subvert expectations.
No, subverting expectations in storytelling is always... Unless you are writing a mystery novel and you're really, 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 really good at it. Subverting expectations, generally not something you want to do. You don't have a steak restaurant that does really, really good steak and suddenly, start serving nothing but macaroni and cheese to your customers when they order a steak. That's subverting expectations. That causes you to lose money.
See, with that in mind, there was a video I watched talking about an article by everyone's favorite company, the BBC, talking about how, like, creators are supposed to subvert expectations. And it's like, well... Wait, go on.
Unless you're writing a mystery novel, that is not your job as a creator. If you are taking on somebody else's property as a writer, and I say this having been a writer, I don't write novels or anything like that. I used to write, and I probably will return to at this rate, adventure modules and RPG systems. When you write that and you're working with somebody else's property, you have to take great care to do your research. You have to basically make your work an extension of theirs. It cannot overwrite, it cannot overlap, and you must make sure to keep plot holes to an absolute minimum. The customer is paying for a product that they are familiar with. Your product has to meet those expectations.
See, you can take it a step further than that and say, you know, when you're gonna go watch Batman, you don't want Batman to be dead in the first 5 minutes. And that's one of the things where, like, no matter how good you make the new character, people go there to watch Batman, not rando.
Yes and no. Best case example I could ever give was Bane, the man who broke the Bat's back. He didn't kill Batman, but he put him out. And Azrael wasn't a bad Batman replacement for a while, but the only reason they did it is because they had to do something like that to bring back the sales. You had the same for Death of Superman. It didn't stick, and that's the thing. If you have a plan, subversion is okay, but it has to be done with a greater plan. That's why I say, if you're not a mystery writer, subverting expectations, not a good idea.
Now, there is one time, but there are a few times where that can work, but that's where it actually serves the story and gives people something they might not have thought they wanted at first. Like, Batman Earth 1, Killer Croc basically becomes Robin. That, I thought, worked pretty well, because it's justified in story, and Killer Croc is, when done right, a fairly interesting character in his own right.
Well, yeah, the thing is, you can do what-ifs like that all you want. That's fine. You let the customer know what they're getting into. You don't just say, okay, well, this is Star Trek. Technically, here's the thing I had to explain for hours last night to another Trekkie friend of mine. They heard the term prime timeline brought up with STD and Picard. Prime timeline is not canon timeline. Canon timeline, which is TOS through, Enterprise, that is its own timeline. That is not prime timeline. Prime timeline was made after Kelvin.
See, with that in mind, I mean, all those things could have gone so much easier had they actually not been Sajubs. I mean, you could.
It's not even that. It definitely is it. But the biggest problem with it is that they're SJWs, plus the fact that you've got 3 companies right now. You've got CBS, Paramount, Viacom. Each one has a different piece of that Trek pie. None of them has all of it. And it's Sherry Redstone's job to bring it all back under one roof.
It's like they didn't even need to do that.
And find good writers.
It's like they didn't even really do that. I mean, they could have just, if you didn't have the Sajubs, you could make Star Trek 25% different. Do that easily. You set it in the future, not the past. You change a few details here and there, but you keep it recognizable to what it is. And that's the thing. That's where, having Killer Croc be Robin, that's still recognizable. It's basically just, crocodile version of Robin. But it's still recognizable as, Batman's sidekick. It's not where he suddenly is the hero and Batman is either dead or incapacitated. So if you wanted to make Discovery good, it'd be really easy. I mean, and you could even potentially have some of the diverse aspects. You make Captain Lorca the main character. You play up the fact that he's from the Mirror Universe. You say that, he initially was going to, try to be a spy, but then he realized how much better the Federation was, and there's this big emotional moment with the crew, and there you go. I mean, this is some basic stuff that people would have ate up. I would have eaten it up. You don't make Michael Burnham in any way, shape, or form Spock's sister. You can make her his granddaughter or something like that. Adopted granddaughter.
Here's the thing with STD. STD is actually plagiarism, and I will say that flat out. Now, I recommend everybody else here don't say it that quite bluntly. I'm saying it because I will fight this in court. I don't care. I will sell everything I have, and I will win. They plagiarized the game Tardigrades. And right now, they're facing a lawsuit for that, and I hope they lose.
They got too much money, they're not going to lose. Or they might settle out of court.
It doesn't matter, even if it's a settlement, even if it's a sealed settlement. Plagiarism is plagiarism. If they lose, which they can, a settlement can be a loss, they have to admit to it, and they're going to have to stop. They can go in another direction, but they're going to have to stop the one they're in.
See, and they could have avoided that too. I mean, the whole Klingon thing, say it's an offshoot of the Klingon Empire. Like, they left, you know, the original Klingon Empire to form their own thing because they thought they weren't being Klingon enough. You know, I mean, once again, it's easy enough to make these things. And people would not complain. My car just randomly died there. Like, Doomslayer just had a heart attack from taking too many roids. Let's see, that SC-38, I do recommend watching that, it's pretty good. I also recommend watching this thing called Galaxy Wars, as you can find on YouTube, where it's basically this giant mashup of Halo, Star Wars, Star Trek, sadly Kelvin Trek, along with Mass Effect. And they actually get Mark fucking Meer as, well, Commander Shepard. It's not the best written thing I've ever seen, but it's still entertaining. And the CGI is a bit dodgy, but, well, it's a fan production, so what do you expect? That's the one problem I have with fan productions, though, is their stories are usually complete crap. It's like, they focus more on the effects than anything else. Heart attack did. Well, he took too many roids. Same thing that brought down Schwarzenegger, although Schwarzenegger survived that.
Thankfully.
And he's still kicking around us, but goddammit.
I will go ahead and say on the record that while the Star Wars prequels are not great, they're infinitely more watchable than what Disney gave us. I will marathon episode 1, 2, and 3, 48 hours worth of it, sooner than watch 1 second of what Disney gave us.
And I will watch neither one of them. It's goddamn, both are painful. Well, that's the thing. No one cares. Star Wars is dead. All the rest of those things are dead. But they'll come back. At least Star Wars didn't get as bad as Doctor Who. For those who like Doctor Who, you know, I'll admit, we didn't get it as bad. You know, they didn't make, like, Captain Picard into a rapist or anything like that. Yet.
My ex-fiance is...
I shall return.
There are levels of PO'd that no human should ever experience, and I know she's experiencing them.
And I have returned. It was quick. But go on.
My fiance was a big Doctor Who fan. So were my parents. I'm glad my parents aren't around to witness what's going on with Doctor Who. And I know my fiance is about ready to tear someone's skin off.
It's like, I feel so bad for everyone because it got so bad. They got it so bad. It's like, okay, even the prequels, none of that was that bad. You know, I mean, compared to that, for those who don't know, basically, straight white male bad. That's the best way to put it. And cultural appropriation. I'm not even joking. There's multiple videos on that. Well, actually, Rain, if you want to talk up through it, go ahead, but it's painful.
Okay, for those of you not in the know, for over 50 years, the biggest, thing about Doctor Who is we never knew his background story. All we know is he was from a planet called Gallifrey, and he was a Time Lord. And we understood what Time Lords did and what they were to the universe. We understood of the Master. We understood of, their importance throughout the timeline. And by timeline, I mean timeline. Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of years. But here's the thing. The background was always left for Doctor Who was always left a mystery. That's literally why the name is there. Doctor Who. We don't know who the Doctor is. Now, I've got no problem with the Doctor being female at all. But essentially, you turn the Doctor into essentially a multiple murdered, and every time they're murdered, they're brought back, minority, child, for no reason other than oh, look at us, we're so diverse with our tokens. Yes. And you essentially turned all of the Time Lords into violent, abusive, disgusting, child-murdering psychopaths. Because they got their, according to this new storyline, they got their power by murdering this one kid over and over and over and over and over again for almost a century. Multiple murders a day, mind you. We're talking like 4 or 5 murders a day. Just so they can say, okay, we want your power. We'll find a way to get it.
It is... That's just terrible, and I'm not even a fan.
They literally turned the Time Lords into something far, far worse than Hitler, Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot. It's awful.
So, yeah. Just remember, it could always be that. Always be that.
Most complicated gun I've ever worked on? Dylan Arrow minigun.
That's complicated? I thought it was just like an electric motor and like a feeding system.
Well, it pretty much is, but you've got your gearing, you've got your transmission for it. Yes, it does have a transmission.
Wow.
You've also got the motor assembly, power linkages, you got your servos. It's simple in operation. It's dead simple in operation, and it's also pretty simple to clean. But taking it completely apart, cleaning every last little part, doing a full detail strip, and then putting it back together, that's actually pretty complex.
Yeah, well, I suppose. I'd like to shoot one of those one day, just because that looks kind of neat. Even if it is just, well, an electric motor and a feeding system.
Well, contrary to popular belief and what video games and movies will tell you, there's no spin-up time. As soon as you hit that button, it's going to fire.
Which sounds pretty awesome, actually. I guess if it was going to have a spin-up time, it would have to be, like, gasoline-powered or something.
No, if it had a spin-up time, it would mean basically that it's wasting energy. To have a spin-up, that means that you're not loading your first chamber. You're basically waiting for at least one rotation to load that first chamber.
I can imagine it's also very expensive to actually operate.
Well, that's why you might want to look into the microgun, because we've really advanced that to where it's completely man-portable now.
Was that 22 LR?
No, 5.56.
Really? Damn. I think I'd actually like to have a 22 LR minigun, though. You could actually afford to shoot it, and it would be utterly insane.
Well, there is a 22 caliber belt-fed upper for the AR-15, which is a lot of fun.
See, that I did not know existed. I just thought you could have mentioned that Tipman 1919.
No, that's a different level of fun all itself.
See, that I would like to have, too. Not that I'd want to pay the $20,000 needed to buy such a thing, but still.
Well, it's not quite that expensive, but it's not cheap.
Or the $10,000. Because it's always going to be $10,000 because it's a machine gun.
No, it's not a machine gun. It's
a
Gatling gun. There's a difference.
Well, no, they made a full auto one of those, a select fire one, I think. I saw that on Forgotten Weapons. A number of.
They used to make several full auto firearms in the 1980s.
And there's still some that you can apparently buy without having to be a dealer. Oh yeah, I don't know how much you know about that, but like, if you became an FFL dealer, is that for a limited time or forever or what?
Okay, here's the thing. If you become Class 1, 3, and 7 SOT, which is Special Organizational Taxpayer, you pay that every 4 years, and you have to keep your paperwork in line. Essentially, you are a gun shop now. You can demo firearms for law enforcement and sell to law enforcement in terms of restricted full auto, in terms of, post-86 dealer samples. The guns do not belong to you, they belong to the company. But that being said, if the company belongs to you, the point is really moot.
Okay, because see, my thought is this. If people wanted to have, more select fire firearms, why don't they just do that?
They can do that, but every 4 years you're paying roughly right around 10,000. Now,
Okay.
if you're doing this legitimately and you are a business, that's not a big deal because you're making back. That's business expenses. You can, while you can't subsidize that off tax-wise, you can't write that off. It's not that big of a deal because you're probably going to be either an LLC or an S corp. In which case, you're doing business. You're doing sales.
But just well, then again, it's like I would imagine people who are fairly wealthy might consider that, but it doesn't seem like they really do.
No, here's the thing. They want a wealthy individual wants the pre-86 guns. The reason why is those go up in value. They see it as an investment, which it's really not, because if we could ever get the U.S. law to change, and yes, I will fully admit this would take quite a lot of work, but it is still very doable, then their quote-unquote gold investment turns back to lead.
It sucks for them, but wouldn't suck for everyone else. You could finally get a PPS H-41 for less than $20,000.
Oh, yes and no. You could, but there's not that many Papa Shaws running around, so yeah. It's still supply and demand. The supply and demand prices will be lowered, but not to a drastic amount. Like, yeah, Mac 10s would no longer cost $9K, but that being said, PPSH, that's still going to be up there because there's not much real current production of that.
See, my thought would be like that wouldn't be that expensive because they made them in the millions, but then I guess most of them have been scrapped or used up, but still. Select Fire AKs would become a thing, though.
Oh, yes, they would. PSA would make an absolute killing.
Because that would be... And, like, the ARs would all have them. That'd be part of the What Would Stoner Do carbine, I guarantee you.
Well, here's the thing. When I was a kid, right before the ban, you could send... My dad actually sent off one of his ARs and got that done. You could send off an AR to a company who would take your lower, drill the third hole, anodize it, and install the trigger kit for about $80.
Huh. The days. Uzis would come back, I would think.
Yes, they would, because Israel never stopped making the Uzi. They would come back simply because it's cheap, it's easy, they've already got the tooling, it would take them no time.
Now see, if they got rid of the NFA, you'd be able to get short-barreled rifles, so that you'd actually be able to have a stock on there. See, the thing is, though, everybody would want, like, the classic Uzi, but realistically, they would put a rail on there pretty fast, because the optic really makes things like that much more usable.
Well, that's the thing. With the Uzi, all you have to do... this is going to sound kind of goofy, but Gabe Suarez did this in the past, where all he did was he changed out the top cover to a side charging one, arranged a piece of 1913 Picatinny rail over a spare Uzi top cover, and congratulations, there's your optic mounting solution.
Well, it works. Let's see. And yes, there have been do mods of those things that cannot be said. At least I assume you can't mention such things on YouTube. An RPG simulator.
And yes, there is the school maps. That's as far as I will say on that. And Klebold's creations are still very much on the net if you want to find them. They've never been taken down. They've just been not talked about. Not hard to find.
I'm not going to play that just because, damn.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
The sad part is, if he and his friends just found a healthy way to vent, they probably would have ended up being map makers. They weren't that bad. It's just the fact that they kind of went off deep ends.
Of course,
that's the real sad part.
What's even worse is it's sort of like it's the Hitler effect. If they just would have let him into art college, he'd have been a fairly good artist. Instead, he killed millions of people. So yeah.
I am infamously familiar with play thing. I won't say it in full because I don't want to get John demonetized.
Yes, please don't do that. And see, like, I'm aware of that. You know what's kind of sad, though? When that thing came out, you could say that. There was a YouTuber named Bennett the Sage who reviewed that.
Yeah, and it was a different YouTube then. You could actually say that without, surprise, demonetization.
It's one of those...
In which case, if we could bring this to, like, DLive or some other stream service where, we could talk about being... without having a particular, jackboot come down on all of our necks, then yeah, by all means, I'd talk about it, but not here. Nope.
Yeah, the only problem with going someplace else is, like what everyone else has the problem with, no one would watch it. It's like 5 people
Well,
would show
that's
up.
the only way I know how to solve that problem is, for your subscribers, you basically release a small video saying, hey, I'm streaming on X, this is the time, come join us.
I've tried that, but that has never seemed to work for me, but... I guess
that's why you don't do that as your main streaming solution. You do that as, here's the quote-unquote safe harbor stream where we are free to say whatever the heck we want.
Who's making you uncomfortable?
Exactly.
Oh god, but yeah, I know of that thing. That's a visual novel of all things, if I'm not mistaken.
No, although Euphoria is. This is more of a... It's a lot like what Illusion does in terms of, oh, well, here's a scenario, here's 3D models, have fun with wet and sloppy noises.
Ouch. We need not let that detain us.
Exactly.
To me, that is actually slightly creepier than the weird visual novel about the birds getting together. Because they're only in Japan.
Hateful Boyfriend, and actually that's a US thing, I do believe.
Really?
It was done as a parody, and it just sort of flew. No pun intended.
Well, that one called Des? Something like that.
There's a KFC dating simulator right now that's free on Steam.
Yeah, I've seen that. I have no interest in like, needing brain bleach.
Well, thankfully, it's G-rated. It's not, it's not 50 Shades of the Colonel's, 11 secret herbs.
50 Shades of chicken. Although I gotta say, KFC is not that great in real life.
No, I'm a fan of DIY.
Like, it just tastes a bit too generic for me. That could be really suggestive, but we're not gonna let that detain us at this time. God damn it, fucking revenants.
And Komoda, I have a Facebook, but I leave it blank because these days you need Facebook for, hiring purposes, but I leave it blank because the people I'm really, having to worry about in my line, the line of work I'm used to, which right now I'm between, is the FBI already knows who I am. Several alphabet soup agencies already know who I am, due to my contacts and due to my past work. So it's left blank because really I don't want anybody trying to claim, oh, I'm raiding, so screw up. Essentially, I don't want FBI agents knocking on my door at 3 a.m. again, so I have to provide coffee and answer 21 questions.
As for me, I never took Facebook very seriously to begin with, so yeah. What I find kind of funny, though, is my very first post on Facebook was more crystal is needed, because I was really into Sins of the Solar Empire at the time. I still remember that. My profile picture was of Mandalore the Ultimate. That was over a decade ago now. It's like, sometimes I'll post now and again of, like, some kind of random crap, but it's not something I use on a regular basis. Just because, I never was into the whole social media thing anyway. If anything,
okay, Ross, dude, I actually like Doki Doki Literature Club. It's interesting. It's not as good as Katawa Shoujo, but then again, Katawa Shoujo you play isn't because you need all the feels, good, bad, and different, all at the same time.
I never got into the weeb stuff. like, it's also, I don't want to say weird, it just doesn't really interest me. Like, the weird bird thing, the hateful boyfriend or a hateful,
That's just meant for fun. That's all it is. It's just, hey, let's make fun of dating sims. Lols.
With how difficult dating is in real life, I don't want to make fun of it. It's a joke in real life, too. Weebs. Webs. It's like, I just recently really got into the whole anime thing beyond the 90s era Toonami, or early 2000s, so yeah.
I really am more of an old taku. I haven't really found much new anime in the past few years that I genuinely like. There's stuff I'll goof around with. There's not much I genuinely say, okay, you've got to see this, or, this is a must-watch. It went from being, really edge-pushing, and I don't mean edgy as in crawling in my skin, Lincoln Loyalist crap. Not just edgy to be edgy, but, pushing the boundaries to, okay, we're completely commercial now. The era of the original animated video, the OVA is dead.
Although there's some good stuff, though, like that Monica Magica thing. That is, like, the most surprising thing ever to me. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah, you got that. You got Goblin Slayer, which are really good, but it's still kind of pop culture-ish for me. Remember, I came in when things were unafraid to be weird.
Speaking of something weird, I actually sat through a little bit of The Thief and the Cobbler from the 1970s. Well, it was finished in the 90s, kind of, sort of. It's one of those development hell kind of things. Yeah. 70s animation is just disturbing sometimes.
It can be, yeah. It can be just... What? Was acid in the water supply?
Yeah, it's like... I don't even... And I finally looked up Felix the Cat. Oh my god. That's not what
I told you that was weird.
I mean, the drugs... It's like, how did they even live? Tanya the Evil.
Tanya the Evil. It's actually pretty good, but you cannot cosplay as that at any con. Because they will have a conniption fit. I had a friend who was going to cosplay as Tanya, and he's like, you can't do that. I'd love to sew it up. I mean, I got no problem breaking up the sewing machine, but you can't do that. It's like, why not? And I had to show her the con rules. Like, oh, damn it!
Oh dear. I consider going to a local con, but it's like, the prices are utterly insane here. Like, $90 for 3 days. Like, no, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. One day I will get to dress up as Grand Admiral Thrawn, complete with my blue face paint. Well, I don't think it's blue face paint. It's some kind of blue crap to complete the whole ensemble, but one day I will be able to do that.
Well, until General So's Sweet and Sour Sicken blows over, I'd advise him not.
Well, yeah. There is that, too.
You don't want the Winnie the Pooh beer bong, bubonic plague.
I would definitely prefer not to have that. I guess I could always go to the local Ren Fair. I mean, of course, Thrawn ended up going to, a medieval planet, because why wouldn't he? It's kind of funny. It's like, in a book, you don't have a budget for special effects. Of course, Thrawn had to go to a, medieval planet. And he was hoping there's going to be a movie.
Well, right now, like I say, I would avoid all public gatherings for a bit. It's just
yeah, that's right.
Now.
It's like, thanks, China.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I like his earlier works. His new stuff is a little too poppy for me, but it's not bad. Around 96 through 99 is really where he hit his peak. Now, in terms of music. In terms of painting, he's still going rather strong.
Who? Oh, Marilyn Manson.
His painting game has gone great. He's really improving as an artist.
It's like, I was thinking Bob Ross. Did he sing? I didn't. I thought he was dead. He's come back from the grave through the paintings.
That would be the best timeline, because that means we have a genuine good guy coming back from the dead to help us all.
I remember that being on like PBS back in the day.
I don't know if it's still up, but there used to be a live stream at Twitch where they would go through all of his episodes. Okay, that's actually kind of nice to have on in the background.
That's just one of those things, like, you don't really see stuff like that anymore, unfortunately. I guess you don't really need it because you have YouTube, and, well, I imagine people on YouTube do painting and crap. Not that that's something I ever really look for. That's one of the few good elements of YouTube, is that you have stuff like that, or the random tutorials that you can find, like how to fix a red dot site that randomly flickers, because of course it does. Evidently it's dirty contacts.
Can be, yeah. As for conventions, I hate to say it, I'm turning into a bit of a graybeard, quite literally. For me to go to a convention, if, number one, it'd have to be Southern Convention, no SJWs. Sorry, if they have any known SJW on staff, I'm not doing it. I used to work security at quite a few conventions, to include Dallas's Project Acon, and I'm not going back until things change.
See, like, I wouldn't even know one SJW from another, though, just because I don't really focus on a lot of that stuff. And I don't know anybody in the convention scene, so it's like, it's just all names to me. It's like, oh yeah, that guy and that person.
I used to work, Project Acon for over a decade. Actually, it's been longer than that. I mean, been done, Back then, he was pretty cool. It was pretty awesome to work that. And that was work, because I was, up for 24 plus hours before my shift ended, but it was worth it.
I do not recommend being up for 24 hours. That was most unpleasant. The one time I had to do that.
I really don't have a YouTube channel. Right now, it's on hiatus because, the best camera I got is kind of crap. And the fact that, for the most part, when I did have a YouTube channel, it was mostly going over firearms rights, things like that, news, and I would return to that, but I need to offer something more than just, more than politics. Politics on itself is important, but generally I need something entertaining.
Yeah, what's entertaining is, like, you could, like, talk about some stuff from the early con days. That'd be entertaining to watch.
Well, for that, I'd actually have to legitimately write out a script, because I've got to change a lot of names to protect the innocent.
Yeah, but people would I'd watch it. Because I find that stuff infinitely fascinating, People who have actually been on the ground, so to speak, for a lot of this stuff. Because I never got into the convention scene until, well, I'm not even in it now. I've been to 2 conventions, so I can't really say I've been to, the convention scene, all 2 of them. You see, that I'd like to know more about, it's like, who did what, who did where, stuff like that. Pretty Hate Machine. I've never listened to Nine Inch Nails. What do we need all these new bands? Every time I see 9 Inch Nails, I think of that one Simpsons reference where Homer doesn't know who 9 Inch Nails is, or Sonic Youth, who now no one knows who that is because they died a horrible death in the 90s.
More like MTV pretty much washed them away, which they did with a lot of bands. Gwar, best case example. If it wasn't for the awesome concerts that Dave Brockie and crew put on, nobody would know about Gwar, because MTV pretty much quashed them at every last angle.
And now MTV doesn't even really exist.
Yeah, they're a joke now.
See, the only modern band that I know of is Sabaton. That's it. Why? Because history and metal and, Outside of them, I know of no one. Like, you give me some sort of modern band, and I have no idea who they are. But then again, I'm very bad about bands in general. Like,
no, you know about The Sword, which, that's got some cred right there.
Okay, that's true. That's true. It's like, other than them, I don't know. Because what can I say? I'm kind of limited in some of my... Oh, yeah, this is the exit. Not that anyone would ever know that.
Right now, I'm listening to a lot of Goat Whore and Pygmy Love Circus,
Beavis and Butthead. Never got into that. But then again, my humor is also unique in some respects. Let's see, I think I'm going to finish this level and go to another Doom 2 Remake mod, because I totally planned it this way. I'm totally not going through Doom 2 Remake mods just because one of the Doom mods didn't work. Not at all. See, I'd like to actually see like the statistics of how much of our society, in terms of pop culture, science, and things of that nature, is based almost entirely off of random chance.
Very little is random chance. A lot of it is marketing, and more marketing.
Well, no, think about it. Like, Star Wars, that was random chance. Nobody knew that was going to succeed.
Yes and no. I mean, Lucas knew it would succeed for the simple fact that he was taking Arthurian legend and applying a coat of new paint to it. Basic, simple hero's journey. That's a very easy sell if you know what you're doing.
See, that's what a lot of these people just don't get. When you're trying to, you don't want to subvert expectations when it comes to that. People like the good old-fashioned hero stuff. You know, you don't want Luke to be like a meth dealer or something. You don't want Han to be a sex trafficker. I mean, it's just one of those things where some of these jobs just don't get it. But still, though, there's a few random chances here and there. I mean, no one knew that 1911 would get that popular and stay that popular throughout, ever.
Well, yes and no. If it's a good design, it seems like things are unpredictable until you start looking at the ethos behind it. If something fills a niche in a market that's not been met, and it does it well enough, it'll stick.
What about Doom?
All marketing. That filled a niche in the market, it did it really well.
Yeah, but there's a lot. I guess so. Still, though, penicillin. There you go. That was completely random. They found some mold.
Yeah, but we were lucky enough that we applied scientific method.
Don't take away the mold. It was like perfect. It was perfect.
Very little in life is perfect. There's perfect for the moment. There's perfect in one's mind's eye, but very little is actually perfect.
Rostrud brings up a good point, though. What about John Carter? John Carter was great. No one cared about it.
This is true. And I will pretty much say, yeah, that's...
Aha, I win for once. Even though not really.
But John Carter was a creation that was pretty awesome.
I mean, specifically the movie, not the books. Well, the books actually did get popular in their day. Although I think Tarzan got more popular for some reason. I actually read the original Tarzans. They're not that amazing.
No, but you give them time and they got better. That being said, there's really two ways you could have gone with that. You could have gone, the way you did and, had something absolutely awesome. Or you could have gone L. Ron Hubbard and had something that's absolutely crap.
Or a cult.
Well, that's the reason why L. Ron Hubbard got big, because he was a cult.
See, that I don't understand. Like, he's a mediocre sci-fi writer, and he forms a cult, and people... I don't...
Simple. Because people in their weakest hour generally are very susceptible. People who are desperate don't make good judgment calls.
And then the Thetans and Xenus, and I think, yeah.
To answer your question, I do like some John Carpenter works. Not all, but most.
Ghost of Mars is crap.
But fun crap. It's absolutely terrible as movies go, but at least it's entertaining.
See, I would actually disagree.
A lot more.
I disagree, though. I watched it, and I was the target audience, 12-year-old. I don't think I was 12, but teenager. There we go. At the very least, a teenager. However old I would have been when that movie came out. And it just drug on and on and on, and it's like it ended.
Okay, compare that to current Star Trek.
Okay, you got.
I'm not saying it's good at all. I'm saying it's good compared to Litmus, where the average day Star Trek is acceptable.
You got a point there, because it was better than that. But that's a low bar. I mean, let's be reasonable. There wasn't even any nudity in that. You know?
No, there wasn't.
And when you're making a crappy movie, especially at that time, there better be some boobs somewhere. Attached to a female. You gotta be specific about
that. Say, because sometimes Troma breaks that rule. There are boobs, but sometimes they're not attached to anything. They're
attached to a female. Because back then, you know, you didn't have access to quite what you have today. Or put it another way, if you're a teenager, it's harder to get. It was harder back then to get access to any Happy Joy Fun Time in that regard. Because, like, when you're using dial-up and there's one computer, yeah, you're kind of out of luck. Where it's like, oh yeah, let's rent this movie that is sci-fi. It totally doesn't have any nudity. I'll never forget, the one movie, they didn't even have that much nudity, believe it or not, that I so thought was going to be like this great gold mine of Happy Joy Fun Time. I don't remember what it was called, but it was some shit movie about space truckers, but they were all female. It was like, surely, come on! Surely.
Okay. I heard Space Truckers initially. I was like, no way, dude. No, there's no nudity in that. That was a great movie. It's a screaming mad George producing some really goofy fun effects. And just a good campy sci-fi B movie.
But see, the movie I was talking about had space truckers that were all female, and, well, there was no nudity. No, there was some nudity at the end, but there was not as much as I thought there would be.
And no tech, you don't think we are. It's just conversations like flying a million miles a minute right now.
Hey, what? Oh, believe me, Techstorm, you do not know annoying until you've had to deal with somebody who's actually annoying. So you're safe. Very safe indeed. Most annoying fan I ever had called me at my home. That was not an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, that's a little creepy. That's kind of stalkery.
And of course it would be a fan who would just so happen to live in the same city as me, because why would they not? And it wasn't even a female fan. Like, okay, you know, like, if it's a female fan, alright, I can live with that. You know, maybe she's...
Sometimes. Stalker is, yeah, I've had stalkers. They're not fun.
See, though, I was like, I think like 20 at the time, so I would have been like, female, yes! Even if it's a stalker, I'd have taken it. Oh yeah, I would have. Beggars cannot be choosers, you know.
Yeah, but you don't have to be a beggar.
Yeah. When I was 20, I could have been, though. But ultimately, it was not a female. Instead, it was... I think it was like some kid, some like 15-year-old kid who loved the General Lotz channel for some reason and wanted to, like, call me at home because why not? It's never even I would deal with a hot, crazy chick. Okay, maybe back then I would have. I'm not sure if I would do that today. Depends on what type of person. I mean, come on, if somebody wants to... Okay, let's say you've got, like, a, you know, hot redhead that wants to, like, stalk you. Why would that be a problem? It'd be great.
Until they realize they want to wear your skin like a man suit.
Okay, well, then I'd have to disagree with that, but what if they don't? What if they just want to... never mind. I probably can't go on with this because I'm sure YouTube would try to demonetize it.
Remember, for every, you know, hot stalker, you've got like 20 or something Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I'd like to avoid that. And unfortunately, question mark, that's not going to happen. Number one, I'm not popular enough. Number two, like, why does it have to be that way? Why can't you, like, write a fanfic with me, like, get together with, like, Hitomi or Gianna? Why not that? Don't... Okay, if it gets fiction written about me when it comes to chicks, I make laser shoot... Ugh. That guy. Fucking Sierra Man. Laser shoot... God damn it, I can't say suit. Leisure
Suit Larry.
Yeah, there you go. That's much harder to say than you would think.
Oh yeah, it's harder to say on demand, because you have multiple S's that don't really come off the tongue that easy, or I'm about to say queasy, but yeah, I suppose if you say it too fast, you probably would get.
That guy, you know? The one that you'll die if you go to the prostitute, apparently. At least I think you die in that, if you do that.
It forces a game over state, but game over states and Leisure Suit Larry are pretty they're not really that bad of a thing. You're not gonna, I gotta redo all this now. It's just, we'll bring you back to life. Hope you saved. If you didn't, okay, well, we'll give you one gimme.
Sierra was was pretty brutal when it came to things like that, though. And that cop game they had, what was that called? Like
Police Quest?
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. So, like, that was even worse. Like, if you didn't do the traffic stop just right, you die.
If you didn't check your tires, you die. You didn't do the traffic stop just right, you die. You didn't follow procedure, you die. Didn't take off your clothes before going to a shower, you die.
How do you die from that?
Just forces the game over, so you really don't die. Yeah, they say you die of embarrassment.
Oh, well. I don't really watch any current animated stuff, just because there's not really much out there that I really care to watch. There is one animated show I would recommend, though, and that would be Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys. You can find it on YouTube and things like that. It's got the guy who played Garibaldi in Babylon 5. It's got Malcolm McDowell as, like, one of the villains. And it's literally a sci-fi series with, well, space monkeys. It ended up getting canceled because the toys didn't sell, but it's a classic 90s sci-fi animated show that is surprisingly good. And one I highly recommend.
When I was a kid, it was weird. We had things like Inhumanoids, where one of the villains, there's a toxic waste spill in a swamp that, one of the villains goes, has a prison break, drowns in that swamp as the flesh melts off his skin due to the toxic waste dump, and is brought back to life as an unholy undead horror.
The 80s. Will we ever have another decade like it?
Maybe. Who knows? There might be a backlash from all the SJWs, and we might have another 80s.
Oh, damn it.
As for graphic adventure games, actually, we're still in a pretty good age when it comes to graphical adventure games. You can go on Steam and find plenty.
Cat Lady is a suitably creepy one. Oh, crap. Immediately jumped right in the pinkies and died. I could make that really suggestive. I'd like to jump at some pink. Never mind. That would just be anti-family. There we go. God damn it. Eventually, I will finish this level. And also, I get the feeling Windows is updating, and that's why I keep the camera keeps freezing. When it does that, it completely hoses the entire computer. I have absolutely no idea why. I've seen multiple fixes, none of which actually work. Because, Windows 10. Please tell me I have a grenade. And I do. Well, see, I miss the media from those days. But at the same time, I happen to, like the current era. Because, well, I'm not a kid. I was thinking about that earlier today, actually. Being a kid isn't terrible. Yep. And you can't turn off these Windows updates. You just can't. They'll update at some point, and you can't get rid of them.
Windows, this is how the Borg begins.
I would not be surprised. Because you can't turn them off. It's not even a Windows update. It's the little apps that you can't fully get rid of. I've tried. They just won't go away, and I never use them. Why would you need a separate app? Okay, you've got Notepad, and then you've got a Notepad app that's completely separate. It's an aggravation, to say the least.
Which, Notepad hasn't really been relevant since right around 2006 when Notepad++ came out.
Yeah, I used to use that. Back when I had a reason to. These days, I don't really.
You don't have a reason to. If you're planning on altering plain text in your code files, you need that, because altering in Notepad will just break things.
Although sometimes you can just use regular Notepad. I actually did that with Dragon Age Inquisition, which doesn't even have a config file. You have to, like, create one yourself, because of course you do. Because BioWare. Oh,
BioWare's gone. BioWare's been gone for a while.
Yeah. Thanks, EA. Okay, we're gonna go to a new Doom 2 Remake, because I cannot figure out where to fucking go.
I am become EA, destroyer of good ideas.
It's like Windows 10 is garbage, but you can't do anything. It's either you want to use that or you want to try to figure out Linux. And
see, I'm that oddball that wishes Amiga OS would come back in force. I mean, yeah, I can go AROS, or I can build a Power PC, dedicated PC with Amiga 4.1 OS. As for Command & Conquer Remastered, wait. There's no use in pre-ordering anything in these days unless it is genuinely limited edition, physical. And number two, it's EA. How many times have they tried to screw us over, and how many companies have they killed?
And, I think this mod doesn't actually work right. I think. Yeah, we'll see how far we can get in this one. This is Doom 2 in name only. And I think the doors are broken. You need to, like, either A, not use Project Brutality, or B, set it up in a certain way. But yeah, Windows 10 is crap, but you really don't have any choice but to use it. And there's not even any doors. So maybe this will work.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I can get by with Linux, and occasionally I do actually boot into Linux. I mean, it uses my secondary OS. But that being said, until Vulkan becomes the de rigueur, or we get something very, very similar, then Windows will have a solid use. And that kind of bugs me, as I really do like Linux.
Damn it. I just think from the end user perspective, though, it's like, if you go Linux, you're still going to end up using Windows at some point, though.
No, not if, like I say, if we have we have APIs that call like Vulkan do, where it's, you know, direct metal call. You don't really need Windows, because right now what's holding us back is games need to run things like Vulkan and similar open APIs. And we also need little things such as a good video and audio editing suite. Once we get that, really, once those things become the norm, Windows loses a lot of luster.
Now see, that would be kind of interesting to see. Or maybe Windows would have to, like, pick up its game a bit. But I knew Windows 10 was going to be bad, just because, well, it's like, Windows 10 is the only Windows that will exist anymore. It's like, oh god. And they made it like a phone. And the webcam's frozen again. At least it's not on a really stupid-looking facial expression, though.
As for video game-related guns, handguns that you'd like to own, I'm a pretty simple guy. As I own a USP, I'd like to say a Mark 23, but it's not really because of a video game. It's because of time with it.
A handgun from a game. I can't really think of one other than the Beretta, which I already have. I would guess the VP-70 for me. That wasn't even in a game, but it's just that is one handgun from a media property I would like to have that I have absolutely no use
in a game. It's Resident Evil 2.
Oh yeah, that's right. My immediate thought went straight to Colonial Marines, because it was in that.
It's got a trigger like a staple gun, but actually I take that back. I've had better staple gun triggers.
But I mean, it's so futuristic.
Oh, it's cool. It's a cool, surprisingly comfortable and useful gun, but yeah, the trigger sucks, and that's my biggest complaint. The trigger sucks. It's a good gun.
So we got Doom 2 in name only. Now, where is that other one? I think, what time is it? I'll go for another 20 minutes just to make it a full 2 hours. Seeing as how it is shortly before the release of Doom Eternal. Let's see here.
That, and it's Friday the 13th, which has been postponed due to coronavirus.
You know, you could say that and be totally serious and it would still work. Ah, there it is. Ultimate Doom 2. This thing never got finished.
Postponed due to Kung Fu Flu.
Okay, there's that. Let's launch it with... Let's go back to Doom Remake number 4. Hope this is the mod that I think it is.
And Tech, I owned a USP 45 before the first Metal Gear came out. The Mark 23 and the USP are actually really, really good guns. They shoot really smooth.
Now this is the ultimate Doom 2. I happen to like this a little bit more than Doom 2 Meets Zdoom because this looks more like the original Doom 2 with a little bit of an enhancement here and there. Project Brutality is still good, but I kind of like the classic a little bit more than I once did. Oh my god, we've got a street, even though it's really small.
As for SMGs, I technically already have the one I wanted, but ironically, it was in a video game. And that's the TMP. In my case, the TP9, because, you know, semi-auto, we can't actually have full auto. Damn UNFA.
Ah, now that's an interesting concept there. Like, what if we lived in a timeline that didn't have that? Would the Thompson still be produced to this day?
It still is produced to this day.
Well, I mean like a real one, though.
Yeah, because it's nostalgic and people always... There will always be a place for timeless guns or guns linked to specific timelines. Like, there's always going to be a home for the Chicago type rifle.
And sadly, the textures in this mod are completely messed up with this texture pack, but whatever, we're going to play it anyway.
Actually, you can't buy guns from Walmart. At least, not most Walmarts.
And that is an unfortunate thing. I don't think I ever bought a gun from Walmart.
They've never carried anything that interests me.
Yeah. I mean, most of it's just, you know, generic stuff anyway. That is one thing that does remind me of something that's pretty depressing, though. There was a time when you could get a Winchester 94 at Walmart. And it was only like $350. Those days are long gone.
Too. So, up until the 90s, you could get them from Sears.
You know, I don't think I ever saw a gun sold at Sears when I was a kid.
As for Walmart, like I say, you really can't these days. If you live in a state that requires open carry, you cannot walk into a Walmart because they will basically ban you from the premises. And call the cops.
Why am I not surprised? Actually, you know what? Since this isn't working in terms of textures, I'm actually going to see if I can't load up an older version of Brutal Doom. No, that's... why not this one? The old Brutal Doom version 19, Spurglord edition.
No Tech. The Tech 9 was made by George Kellgren, who now owns Keltec. They didn't make the Tech 9 to a specification. That's why it's always kind of been iffy. The Mac 10 was made by Ingram, and the Mag 7 was actually made in South Africa.
The original combat rifle. I've loved the original sound they had for this. Now this is the...
Yeah, the gun laws here are crap, but we've had worse, and we're working on getting better.
See, like, if this is crap, just imagine if you lived in Europe. The old Europe!
Depends on which part of Europe. Like, Poland? Yeah, Poland's pretty good. Switzerland is in a rough spot right now, but they're doing okay.
Yeah, but let's be reasonable, though. If, like, right now you could, like, teleport to one of those countries with a job and money, would you really want to go...
You know, Brianna Wu Kung Fu Flu.
Okay, well, there's that, too.
I would... you'd have to... In my case, you'd have to make me about 10 years younger, in which case Switzerland's... Because if you're there as a resident and you're 18 to 34, you're serving as, their military. It's mandatory. But the good news is you get a deep, deep discount on a SIG 550, which you're expected to keep at all times.
That's one of those things
that's an FA SIG 550.
Not bad. See, though, I don't think I'd really like to ever had to have done conscription, though. That just sounds unpleasant.
Well, here's the thing. It's the Swiss. They're not likely to go to war. That, and it's free college. Well, I say free. You're going to bust your butt for it. You're going to work for it. But you're not going to have a mountain of debt afterwards.
Yeah, I suppose that works. Still, though, I'm always paranoid about assholes.
Well, yeah, that's something to be worried about. But that being said, if not for the fact I got 4F, I would have gone U.S. Army anyway. So
yeah, I suppose that works. Of course, whenever I think of conscription, I always think of like Russian conscription, where like not like half the people die, but there's like huge proportion of people that end up committing suicide. So it's like, yeah.
No, Swiss is far. The Swiss are far different than Russia. Their troops are very well trained and very well equipped.
Yeah. I always like to visit Switzerland. Looks like a very nice country. I don't know, it's just one of those things where I think while the gun laws here might not be perfect, I still prefer the United States. I did not save. This is a long-ass level, too. We're going to finish this level and call it a day.
And as for Europe goes, I've been all over Europe, west and east.
So
I will say this, the Czechs know how to make really good beer. And it's cheap.
And what's funny is the one thing I think of when I think of the Czech Republic, attractive women. That's about it.
Attractive women, good guns, great beer, and decent food.
I don't really know anything about Czech cuisine. I assume it's adequate.
It's mostly, very, very Eastern, almost Russian fare, which is generally pretty solid overall.
I have very limited taste in food, as with many things, so I don't know. And why would you want to visit Chernobyl, TechStorm? That sounds very unpleasant. I don't think you want to die and become a liquefied mass. Or whatever happens with radiation sickness. I forget exactly how that works.
Well, they do have filter masks and things like that. I still advise that you take great care if you ever do get to go to Chernobyl, but you're not going to be going to the zone of alienation, so...
Let's see, Stalker vibes. Dracula's old stomping grounds.
Romania is gorgeous.
So like, all that sounds great, but yeah, planning an actual European vacation is not going to be an easy prospect.
Well, right now it's an impossibility.
Well, oh yeah, I keep forgetting because of beer. Because
Winnie the Pooh flu.
Oh, that's... See, I'm hoping that becomes nice and dated within like a month. It's like, oh god, it's the swamp.
I'm hoping it becomes just nothing more than a tired, dated joke as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's like, the swine flu, oh no! The bird flu, SARS.
Birdemic?
The less about that, the better. That is truly an inconvenient truth. See, that's one of those things I could never sit through that. It's hard to sit through a review of that and have to listen to that horrible dialogue.
Like, yeah, Romania does have problems, but it has a lot less problems it does, now that the wall's down and, communism is pretty much in the past, for them at least.
See, that's one of those things that I always find kind of funny, where, like, there'll be YouTubers that you wouldn't think would actually be against socialism and communism, and then it's like, really? They're gonna say that? Aren't they worried about the repercussions? It's like, that one history guy, Indian Idel, which is the weirdest name when you say it. When he says it, it sounds fine, but when I say it, it sounds weird. Like, he actually spoke out against socialism. It's like, yeah, it doesn't work. It's like, really? You're gonna say that? You're pretty popular.
if you're Romania, that's the general consensus because they lived through it. I mean, shit.
I want to know more about that guy.
What it's like.
I want to know more about that guy and like, is he from like Germany or something? He sounds American, but that doesn't really mean much these days. And he can actually pronounce German words a lot better than most Americans can.
Well, normally we can't do the soft CH thing.
Evidently, the World War II channel is going to start doing the home front and things of that nature, which sounds interesting. Going to be bringing in a new commentator. Thankfully, did not get SJW.
And yes, Silver's Wings. Actually, this is very a lot like certain events in Rainbow Six. That would not be a bad choice.
You know, I thought about that. It was like, oh my god, no. Okay, so if you could have 3 actors from the 80s play members of the Rainbow Six team, who would you choose?
We'd actually have to go back to the 80s because Ding Chavez has to be played by Raul Julia.
Alright, that could work. Have it be sort of a prequel. But who else?
That's tough. I have to think about that. That is genuinely tough.
Well, see, here's the problem. I would want to go a bit 80s cheese. So, you know, it's going to be Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura, and Michael Beanbine. I never can remember how his name is pronounced, so I'm just going to say Beanbine.
Bean. Sorry, Bean. Now you got me doing it.
Beanbine! Just say Beanbine. One of them's going to be right. Is Bean or Bine? Or Beanbine?
Michael Bean could actually do a pretty good job in that, but like I say, you gotta have Ding Chavez played by Raul Julia, because damn, you want that man on the screen.
And yeah, I'd also like to visit Poland. I've actually watched some YouTube videos on that, and it's a very beautiful country. Very clean.
And to answer how old am I? I'm approaching my 40s. They're coming very fast.
Thankfully I'm not. I'm just barely past 30. So, as of a month ago, I became 31. The kid is now old. That actually reminds me of... There were some YouTubers back when I was like 20 who had just turned 30. It's like, well, that's so far in the future. Well, it kind of caught up with me. Actually reminds me, I would really recommend seeking out the, what was it? Retro something. Retro Wave, I think is what it was called. Not Retro Wave. Retroware? I think it was Retroware. They did a video on Ninja Spirit that was absolutely amazing. Ninja Spirit, of course, being a TurboGrafx 16,
and arcade game.
Oh yeah, it was an arcade game, wasn't it?
Yeah. I've actually got a boxed copy of it right next to the CRT.
That's actually
since the 90s.
It's a surprisingly good game. I would really recommend using all the save states, all of them, because it's fucking hard.
Oh yeah, there's no shame in emulating that, because the last level essentially has a very, very, very absurdly hard last section, which will kill you over and over and over again, and it's brutal, absolutely brutal. And that's before you get to the last boss.
Brutal Ninja Spirit.
You wouldn't need to add anything, it's already brutal.
But I can never get Michael Beanbine's name right. That's the problem with some words. I know there's a proper pronunciation, but I can never remember what it is because I really can't be arsed to. It's kind of like nuclear and nuclear. Just say atomic and be done with it. One of them's going to be right.
And to answer your question, as I already said before, I'm approaching 40, like really, really quick. As for the Czech Republic, yes, they've recovered really, really well because they threw everything. They were just barely part of the Warsaw Pact to begin with, and they mostly, if they could get away with it, paid lip service to communism.
There you go. Also, really attractive women. Let's never forget that.
Yeah, well, that's something they've always had, thankfully.
If I was more popular, people would be like, that's sexist. Exactly, it is sexist.
No. It is very sexist. It's not sexist. Because to please the SJWs there, which is a total impossibility, yes, I know, the guys there are not bad either. Ha! There's your diversity. Now suck on it.
Let's see, what time is it? It is already 2 hours. Damn, where does the time go? Also, being up since 5 in the morning makes me very tired even when playing this. This is a long-ass level, by the way. Whoever created this level really wanted to show off all their various modeling skills. This may not have as many slopes, but I have to say it's a lot more fun than Doom 2 Meets Zdoom.
No, the internet did not exist in the 1980s. We had what was called BBS, bulletin board systems, where you took your phone, took a modem, you physically dialed in the numbers, whether it be a rotary or touch tone. Then you hooked your modem up to the said phone, where it would proceed to make horrific and soul-curdling noises at you to download a page where you could proceed to download some software. If it was one of those BBSs, you could check news and things like that. It was a lot like teletext. If you get the chance to look up bulletin board systems on YouTube, because there are still some that are still running to this day. And in fact, I got a friend in Colorado who runs one using a Commodore 64.
That's not even that long ago. Not really, in terms of technological advancements. God damn it. Like how I just walk through the door and immediately just get wasted by an imp. Or Spiny, as the book's was called.
But it depends on the generation. The M9 is the current bayonet, and it'll work on just about anything that's been made since the 1980s. So the M7 will work on some rifles.
I'm not gonna lie, part of me wants to put a bayonet on that Ruger PC carbine. I mean, there's absolutely no need for that, but it's got an M-lock handguard. Is there an M-lock bayonet socket? If not, there needs to be.
Yes, actually.
Really?
But the thing is, we don't... I gotta look at the carbine to see if there's enough length there to mount it.
I'm not surprised that such a thing exists, but I'd almost have to, potentially force myself to buy such a thing. Yes, it should be. It should, but alas, it does not. Because it's Russia. It's been that way for the last several hundred years.
Well, the reason why they're not is right now Russia is fiscally almost broke. Right now the biggest things for Russia is the gas pipeline with Turkey. They really need that to go flawlessly, because that can prop up their economy.
Haven't they always been broke, though? I mean, seriously.
No. Here's the thing. As bad as communism was, and it was exceptionally piss poor, when your workers make next to nothing, that generally goes towards the government paying off its weapons debtors and things like that. The fact that back then they were the ones bullying other nations, so they didn't have as much debt. Now they do have a lot of debt, and they have had since Perestroika.
Now, see, yeah,
it's a complex thing.
Now, I'd like to see, the stats of, which country actually ended up doing more. The Soviet Union or Communist China? Because, I don't know.
Doing more damage? Or doing more good?
Both. Although I don't really know what good the China comms are doing, but okay.
Doing more good? Russia. But that's because after Perestroika, they upped their research game a lot. Doing more bad? That's a really tough one. If you're counting from, Lenin on, then I would almost say Russia. But now, with what we know and what's going on currently, I'm gonna have to say China.
Well, we can't say that.
They've done more bad.
YouTube would not like that. China is all is China, but still, it's like, which one had more power?
Number 4.
Exactly. Which one had more power, though? The Soviet Union or China? Because the Soviet Union talked a big game, but I don't know.
The Soviet Union had more military power, just flat out. They always have had more military power than China. But China has this disgusting little thing which works as both a boon and a detriment to them, and that is the old joke of no one starts a land war in China. Well, it ain't because the amount of people. Sure, there's a lot of them. There's a ton of them. The reason you don't start a land war in China is because that's rough terrain. That's... If, a war were to break out in China, non-nuke, China would be FUBAR, but it would take a long, long time to take China down because neither our troops nor their troops can move effectively in that.
I'm also thinking, like, in terms of, like, global influence, because the Soviet Union, they had a strong start in the 50s, with a lot of these countries going communist, but it didn't last. So...
Yeah. Well, tech, they really didn't. The illusion of it happened really in 1997 with the Hong Kong changeover. But that being said, there's no capitalized socialism. It's just socialism. It's just, okay, well, yeah, you can make your money, but at the end of the day, we completely own your corporation. We can take all that money you made and make it ours.
Therein lies an interesting question of, is that more like old-style monarchies, though? You say, capitalism didn't really exist under feudalism, but then again, the king could always take whatever he wanted. So you could have, like, a great trading company, but if the king wanted it, he could just take it.
It is pretty close to serfdom.
So we've actually gone back in terms of advancement. Because, like, I think in some respects, a lot of these authoritarian countries kind of want that. Where, like, the king...
Well, yeah, all authoritarians want that. That's their end goal.
And so, like, that's
basically, they want a caste system and they want control.
I don't know if they'd really want to go as far as a caste system, though, but because that
really... they do, because that means there's less competition. You can build dynasties.
Yeah, but surely they'd have to know that really just breeds stagnation, which ultimately...
They don't care. They only want power and influence. Why would they give even the slightest flip about the good of the people?
I'm thinking more like in terms of enlightened self-interest more than anything else, because the idea is... If you're self-interested...
Because they want the illusion of that. You always want illusion of a kinder, gentler, whip-wielding hand.
To me, that's just so... It's so illogical! It makes no sense!
It does, but the thing is, you're dealing with sociopaths.
Yeah.
It don't make sense.
People be crazy. Gaming started with computer space for the first arcade game? I don't know, maybe.
It wasn't the first arcade game, but yeah, that is pretty much where gaming started. Now you go to the National Video Game Museum and see the original... I can't even talk. Pre-Odyssey machine right there. They have it behind glass, but you can see that. You can also play the world's largest Pong machine and all that. It's a nice trip.
Pong actually has aged remarkably well. Like, if you want to do like some mobile gaming, that actually, you'd be surprised. You can kind of get into that.
Yeah, that and Warlords. Warlords to this day, even though it's just a very simple paddle and ball 4-player game, it's still a hell of a lot of fun at a party.
It's kind of crazy in that regard. People have worked so hard on all these highly advanced games, and at the end of the day, two little squares going back and forth, batting a ball around, still works.
Well, yeah, there's a Pong RPG on Steam that I have favorited. I'm going to save up, a little bit of spare cash and just go on a game buying spree of this small little games.
That's just insane. Family of languages? Pirates? I don't know. Like what?
Favorite family of languages. This is going to sound obvious, but really the Franco-English-Germanic languages, the Latin-based languages, simply because I know quite a bit of those, and now my German is horrible. I really need to brush back up on that.
I just now can pronounce Walther. Walther! It took me years. Hey, Walther doesn't sound that bad. He said not saying it, Walther.
Well, here's the thing: in the American market, all the sales reps will tell you Walther is okay. We don't expect Americans to say it properly. It's like Heckler and Koch. They don't expect Americans to say it properly.
I can barely speak American properly, so I'm doing good just to get that out. Windjammer / Flying Power Disc.
Yes, that is a Neo Geo game that's ultimately very worth owning.
Okay, here's the funny part about German. I make this joke all the time. The German language ever comes out. Anything said in German will automatically sound evil. Anything.
Yes.
It's just the nature of the language.
There was a running gag I used to have with the X, is that life is short, so tell your loved ones you love them. Let them know they're loved. But life is also scary, so say it in the most frightening way possible. So you go up to your ex, not X in this case, you go up to a woman you love and say, Ich liebe dich!
See, that does sound
Which is just, I love you.
Yeah. My Little Pony must sound even more, it must sound terrifying. Oh. But My Little Pony aside, be it terrifying in German or not, I am dead. So I will see you all next week for Doom Eternal. And so I'm General Lotz.
And I'm Riddick.
And we can wish you good Doom Squirrel Edition, assuming you can ever find the download, or whatever makes you happy.